People whispered. They pointed. They smirked. But the single dad, Daniel Harris, didn't notice any of Ida, or rather, he pretended not to. He kept his arm protectively wrapped around his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, as they shuffled down the narrow aisle of the airplane. To anyone watching, Daniel looked like every other tired parent dragging a child through a busy airport. But if you looked closer up, if you saw the worn-out shoes on his feet, the wrinkled shirt that had been washed so many times its color had faded, and the way his little girl clutched a second-hand teddy bear like it was gold, you'd realize this man wasn't just traveling. He was fighting for something much deeper. "Daddy, are we really going to sit in first class?" Lily whispered, her brown eyes shimmering with a mix of hope and disbelief. Daniel squeezed her hand. He didn't want to lie, but he also didn't want to crush that spark of excitement in her. "We'll see, sweetheart, maybe today's our lucky day." The truth was, their tickets were for economy, the cheapest seats he could find, wedged near the back with barely enough legroom for a child, let alone a grown man. But then, as they boarded, a stewardess leaned close and said softly, "Sir, there seems to be an issue with your seats. Could you please follow me?" Daniel's heart dropped. He immediately assumed the worst. Maybe the airline had overbooked. Maybe their tickets had been cancelled. Maybe they wouldn't even be able to fly. He couldn't afford another delay. This trip meant everything. But in a broken bar the unexpected happened. The stewardess smiled. "Sir, for today, you and your daughter have been moved at the broken bar to first class." The words hit Daniel like a wave of disbelief. First class? He had never even stepped beyond that thick curtain that divided the world of comfort from the world of survival. First class was for CEOs, movie stars, and millionaires, and not for single dads who worked 2 jobs just to put food on the table. "Daddy, is this real?" Lily gasped, clutching his arm. Daniel knelt down, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Yes, baby girl." Sometimes miracles happen. They walked into first class, their eyes widening at the sight, seats that looked like thrones, screens bigger than the TV they had at home, menus instead of paper trays, and champagne glasses already waiting. For Lily, it was like stepping into a fairy tale. For Daniel, it was both a blessing and a reminder of everything he could never give his daughter. But what Daniel didn't know was that someone was already watching them closely. A woman, elegant, powerful, dressed in a tailored suit that screamed wealth and authority. She sat 3 rows ahead, but her sharp eyes never left the pair. She didn't scowl, didn't frown, didn't complain yet. But her assistant leaned over and whispered, "Ma'am, those taught a broken bar there in your seat." The woman of the shot smiled faintly. "Good, let them stay." What Daniel couldn't possibly imagine was that this woman wasn't just a passenger. She was the CEO of the entire airline. She owned the very plane they were flying on. And before this flight was over, his life and Lily's was going to change forever. The hum of the engines filled the cabin. But for Daniel, it was as though time itself had paused. Lily sat beside him in the oversized seat, giggling as she pressed every button she could find. The seat reclined like magic. The screen showed cartoons. A flight attendant handed her a glass of orange juice in a crystal cup, and she looked at her dad with the purest joy. "Daddy, I feel like a princess," she whispered. Daniel's eyes misted. He turned his face toward the window so she wouldn't see the tears. He had promised his late wife, on her hospital bed, that he would give Lily the best life possible. And yet, most days, it felt like he was failing. But today, seeing her glow with happiness, he thought maybe just for a today I've done something right. But the fairy tale flight wasn't unnoticed. The CEO finally stood, tall, graceful, commanding. She walked down the aisle until she stopped right in front of them. Daniel instantly tensed. He thought she was there to kick them out, to remind him that first class wasn't meant for people like him. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice smooth yet sharp. Daniel rose halfway from his seat, apologetic. "Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't know how we ended up here. If this is your seat, we can." But she raised her hand, silencing him. Then, she crouched down to Lily's level. "And who might you be, young lady?" "I'm Lily," the girl said proudly, lifting her teddy bear. "And this is Mr. Buttons." The CEO chuckled, a sound softer than Daniel expected. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a gold pin shaped like a pair of wings. She pinned it gently to Lily's dress. "Well, Lily, today you're not just a princess, you're my co-pilot." Daniel blinked in confusion. "Yeah, broken bar, I don't understand." The woman straightened and finally introduced herself. "My name is Victoria Steele. I own this airline." The words nearly knocked Daniel off his feet. This wasn't just a rich passenger. This was the CEO, the person who built this empire, and she had given her own first-class seat a broken bar to them. "But why?" Daniel asked, his voice breaking. "We don't belong here." Victoria studied him carefully, then said something that made his heart stop. "Because once upon a time, I was you." She told them her story of how she grew up in poverty, how